We'll pray briefly. Chant the name of the Lord and His glory unceasingly, that the mirror of the heart may be wiped clean and quench that mighty forest fire, worldly lust raging furiously within. O name, stream down in moonlight on the lotus heart, opening its cup to knowledge of thyself. O self, drown deep in the waves of His bliss, chanting His name continually, tasting His nectar at every step, bathing in His name, that bath for weary souls. Various are thy names, O Lord. In each and every name thy power resides. No times are set, no rites are needful for chanting of thy name. So vast is thy mercy. How huge then is my wretchedness, who find in this empty life and heart no devotion to thy name. O my mind, be humbler than a blade of grass. Be patient and forbearing like a tree. Take no honor to thyself. Give honor to all. Chant unceasingly the name of the Lord. O Lord and soul of the universe, mine is no prayer for wealth or retinue, the playthings of lust or the toys of fame. As many times as I may be reborn, grant me, O Lord, a steadfast love for thee. A drowning man in this world's fearful ocean is thy servant, O sweet one. In thy mercy, consider him as dust beneath thy feet. Ah, how I long for the day when an instant's separation from thee, O Lord, will be as 1,000 years, when my heart burns away with its desires and the world without thee is a heartless void. Prostrate at thy feet let me be in unwavering devotion, neither imploring the embrace of thine arms, nor bewailing the withdrawal of thy presence, though it tears my soul asunder. O thou who stealest the hearts of thy devotees, do with me what thou wilt, for thou art my heart's beloved, thou and thou alone. Welcome to today's subject, looking within. My guru used to say, the best way out is in. Meaning the best way out of bondage or ignorance is in. A mantra in the Kathopanishad speaks, it's translated as, the self-existent Lord destroyed the outgoing senses. Therefore, one sees the outer things and not the inner self. A rare, discerning person desiring immortality turns his eyes away and sees the indwelling Atman. The whole verse is beautiful. Paranchikani Vetrinat Swayambhu Tasmat Parang Pashyati Nantaratma. So here we get the idea that the self-existent Lord, nature, has made us externalized. But if you want immortality, you better get inside. That is the gist of today's talk. I remember when I was young, I used to see pictures of the various saints and yogis of India, always immersed in contemplation, deep within. They're looking inside. And when I saw pictures of other saints from other cultures, they were looking up at the skies. And I should look up at the skies. There must be something there, because these guys are kind of looking out there. But as you know, culture kicks in, and I said, no, there must be something there. Like you see here, the picture of Buddha is inside. You see the Christ looking outside. You see all these pictures, they're all meditative. There must be something there in that. So it's always this kind of, in the East, we started a search going inside, became contemplative. And the other people, they were busy, active and doing things. While in the East, people became contemplative, they discovered grander and grander visions of things inside. They brought out the sublime doctrines of the Atman, of karma, of psychology. And in the West, they became scientific. They went out in the senses and they studied the external nature and this and that. In the East, people thought in symbols. In the West, people thought in concrete images. You can see art, how it is, art and music. There was a lot of misunderstanding between these two disparate, as they say, orientations, the world views. While in the East, to be somebody is to be a yogi. And the rest of the external world was secondary. So this was the misunderstanding between these two sets of people. And the misunderstanding went for millennia. Each thought the other dumb. Those guys, and those guys, dumb. You know what they do, they're sitting with the closed eyes. But these world views dictated everything else. How we interacted with each other, how we brought out music and art and sculpture, and everything dictated, harkened back to the worldview. And in the field of religion, all mythology and all rituals and all doctrines followed the same path. So we went inside, the Indian mind went inside, and I said, they brought out the superior doctrines of the Atman. They deeper and deeper they went, oh my God, look at this. It's a whole new world inside. While those who were bound to the senses and apprehended the external world, they had a kind of an elevated view of human beings and an elevated view of this world, minus all its miseries and troubles and everything, in a place called heaven. And they brought out a personal God. So the afterlife or whatever was dictated by what was seen here, just in a kind of a superior form. So this was the orientation. However, Swamiji was very clear, saying, truly in nature, there is no such thing as internal and external. And on the ultimate analysis, because he says unity in variety is a plan of creation. Everything is unified. They cannot be internal and external. So this was his idea also, that we have to take the best elements from the introspective and the best elements from the active and create a new type of culture and civilization. This is what he wanted, and this is what he preached. because the challenges of today are both internal as well as external. And we must be able to be equipped to meet these challenges. Generally, when we try to think of going inside, what do we see? Oh, the various contradictions in our life. Oh my God. So many contradictions. How can I be so contradictory? I say one thing and do something else. I think one thing and the next moment I think something else. So these contradictions are in our minds, in our intellect, in everything. There's kind of this contradiction. There's a kind of a confusion there. And the normal human, you can say, tendency is, circumstances are to be blamed. The world is to be blamed. I'm a saint of the first order. Everybody thinks, if it wasn't for my circumstances, I would have been, yes, praised. Instead of people blaming me for everything. We also become aware of a very personal, a private image of ourselves that we secretly nurture. And that is what we have to contend with. That's a very private image. So this is what happens when you try to close your eyes, you see inside. Oh. Cutting through it, of course, we think that the world is nice and simple. You look around and you see people very nice and simple. Oh, it's a nice guy. Oh, you don't. That guy's a bad guy. No, you don't. We don't really understand the complex factors that are interplaying at every given moment, whether we are aware or not aware. Both internal and external factors, they are now combining, and this is what we don't see, but it is there. Again, when we look inside, we're saying, okay, I'm one. This idea of identity as a single, simple entity is completely wrong, because we all are a cluster of sub-personalities, loosely tied. And a little stress fragments it. And we have been told that we have to integrate all these sub-personalities into a dominant, you can say, theme under the psyche. Otherwise, you're going to have problems. And we see this in the cases of schizophrenia, stress and anxiety and bipolar and the works. I don't need to enumerate all these things. There's a kind of contradictory behavior, there's a contradictory element. We have not been striving to integrate ourselves, integrate the sub-personalities. And each sub-personality has its own methods, its own memories, its own, you can say, beliefs. So this is what we encounter as we are trying to look inside. Is saying the best way to go out is go in, but these are the standing, you can say, obstructions that we find. Okay, we'll talk about normal people. We're talking about hallucinations, etc. So Swami Vivekananda says, try to conceive of your existence and close your eyes and see what comes out. It's just the feeling of I. Okay. The idea of a body. It's very difficult to have a conception of yourself minus your body. And this idea of the body is constantly reinforced by everything that comes from outside, the senses. Because your body needs to orient itself in the external world. If the brain doesn't realize where it is, you get bumped by a car, don't worry. Apart from these 5 senses that are sending their inputs, there are also the 3 systems internally that help the body understand now, okay, what's the state of my body? So one is the proprioception. There's a constant kind of signals, neural signals going up to the brain from the joints and the muscles, etc., to what's my body internally like. We won't go into a scientific discussion on that, but suffice it to say that proprioception is extremely important. It's also called, the sixth sense, not in the sense of a superior sense. It is an internal sense. It's considered a sixth. And the 7th is interoception. Interoception is the brain needs to know everything about the body apart from all the other signals coming in, this temperature and everything else. How is it? Then we have the kind of vestibular system that keeps us balanced. So nature has designed us so perfectly. I mean, almost perfectly. You cannot say perfectly. The human body is full of imperfection, but it's a beautifully designed instrument to interact with this world on one level only. Take, for instance, suppose you got a dog can smell better than us. And we'll say, oh my God, we thought we are great. So look at that. Other beings have got superior senses, but they have to interact on their level of this world. They need that. So this is the first thing that we encounter. When you close the eyes and try to meditate, most of us, what we do is we're trying to meditate on the body only. And then what happens is we fall asleep. Because the mind cannot get inside this first barrier. It's natural. You can't meditate with the idea of the body so solidly sitting in your consciousness. And that's the reason why they say, okay, this is what is the first thing that we encounter when we are trying to look within. The second is, obviously, it's your personality. Now, it's a complex interaction between nature and nurture. Everything that has gone into forming us, the real. You may look whatever you seem to be. And the human species more or less look similar. We think we've got variation, plenty of variation. You can see, look around. Everybody looks different. But to somebody new, oh, they look same. I remember when we used to have our monks' conferences, hundreds of monks sitting down, and at times I had to go and speak, and I used to see everybody, oh my God, everybody looks the same. But then when I come down from the podium, hey, see the differences. The similarities are more marked regarding personalities. There are no two people alike, and they cannot be. Everyone is distinct, separate. So this is the personality. And skills, intelligence, degree of concentration, and your upbringing, your culture, your religion, your language, all these things have gone into forming you, the real you. So that's the second thing we encounter when we are trying to get inside, your personality. How to contend with it. That's the reason why they say you've got to have a strong personality, not a weak one. The third thing that happens is, now this is controversial, but it is more or less understood that evolutionarily, nature had to protect us from things we could not identify easily, whether that food is rancid or no, whether that thing will make me ill or kill me. So we developed the sense of smell in such a way, because the olfactory sense is actually nothing but an extension of the brain. We saw, stay away, that is not good. And we went towards things that looked and smelled pleasantly. There was a kind of a mechanism. It's loosely called a disgust mechanism. It saved us for millennia. And so from there slowly developed the idea of morality. What smells good should be good. What smells bad, that's bad, that's evil. So people say, who thought out what is right and wrong? You don't need any commandments to tell you what is right and wrong. You know it. It's in the very fiber of your being. You know what's right and you know what's wrong. So this became the moral sense. This also is what we encounter deep within. Then another thing that we encounter is, each one of us, we look at ourselves and we interact with this world, yet at the same time, we have an ideal image of ourselves. It's a private one, but it is, the external, it's guided by more like, for a better word, you can use a super ego. You have extracted your ideas of morality and thought and everything by observation as you keep on growing up, and you have formulated an idea of a kind of a perfect behavior, perfection, rather I would say. This is what I would like to be. And this abstraction from various sources and formulating an ideal image of yourself is extremely important, because that tries to inspire, that makes you work. At the same time, it is modified constantly by things that you see around. New trends, new clothes, and new dresses, and new styles, and new perfumes, and So this ideal of perfection is always dynamic. It's always growing. So we encounter too many things. Yeah. This ideal of perfection, if not sober or tempered with your, you can say, intelligence, becomes a grandiose image of ourselves. This takes on a kind of a different nature. I may be 5 feet 7 or 8 or whatever, but my grandiose image is 6 feet tall. I always wanted to be like that. I may not be looking very kind of good, but in that world, I am the best looking. I am the bravest. I am the strongest. I am the most intelligent. I am the everything. That is the, you can say, idea of ourselves that we encounter. And this is extremely, you can say, dangerous, because it's based on desires, on your own illusions. You know in the external world you can never be this, what you dream about. But in my private world, I can. I am the king. No problem. Who's there to see me there? Only I am there. that is something that one has to puncture. Okay. Now, speaking about all these things, we have something called autobiographical self. It's a timeline, your timeline. Otherwise, how can this idea of you today be connected with everything that was in the past? So this is hardwired in our memories. It's the working memory and the explicit memory, etc. I will be looking at this next Sunday. So hold on. We won't go deep into this. So there is a narrative, a personal narrative embedded in your mind, in your brain rather. It's there. You can see your own past things. Of course, there are some good things, there are some bad things also there. And then this is what. So it's a sense of self that is very robust. However, drugs or alcohol or even some disease or any kind of pathogen entering the blood-brain barrier can disrupt this. And it does. So if you take some kind of psychedelics, and you know what happens. The whole thing is, poof, goes away for the time being till your system doesn't throw it out. And then you think you're a tiger. Yeah, you got your crazy hallucinations. So now all these things that we encounter as we are looking within, they need to be understood. Otherwise, you will not be able to cross them. You see, what happens is, it is through knowledge that one enters into the realm. You know what you're going to encounter and you go forward. You don't go ignorantly. These ideas of ourself as we go inside are not compartmentalized. Like I go from one level to the next level to the next level. No, it's not like that. They always interact. There's a constant dynamism between all these ideas of yourself. That being said, Swami Vivekananda says, I'll quote, you know how pearls are made? A parasite gets inside a shell and causes irritation. And the oyster throws a sort of enameling around it. And this makes the pearl. The universe of experience is our own enamel, so to say. And the real universe is a parasite serving as nucleus. The ordinary person will never understand it because when the person tries to know this external world, he or she sees only that enameling that they have thrown. This external world is just a projection of something that we have and captured from sensations that have come inside. This is the idea of yoga. There's something further he says, this external world by its nature is unknown and unknowable. And that X impinges on my mind and then it is known. So X plus mind is the world. So the X is the parasite or something, some grit or something that goes and the oyster throws its juices around and tries to contain it so that it may not scratch the oyster. So it's always like that. A mind goes, and this is what we encounter. But then problem is these pearls, these pearl divers, oh my God, they go down, in many parts of the world. You'll find them going down deep and then picking up those oysters and then breaking them open. They come up and they find a pearl. These pearls do not get destroyed with every sensation. They remain as experiences. And like a geologist or an archaeologist keeps on digging down, that digging down, go inside, you'll find various layers of pearls at different times of it. It's going back in time. No pearls are destroyed. They are there in the subconscious mind. That is what you encounter as you keep on going inside. Oh my God, I keep on trying to meditate and mind is so restless, and then I can handle that through breathing or something like that. But then the old pearls start coming out. They try to get in deeper. Old memories. That is a layer that needs to be not gently cut. It needs to be hacked. You have to hack your way through it. Once you do that, then you can understand you're really looking within. Many people, when they read the Bhagavad Gita, they are kind of surprised. There is a war going to take place, that impending war that both the armies are facing off. And Krishna has been asked by Arjuna, take my chariot out and keep it out in the front between the two armies. Let me see who wants to fight against me, because he was considered a very great warrior. And the opposing armies were, hey, look at that guy. He's come. But Arjuna, as he goes and sees his grandfather, his uncles, his teachers, and his cousins and all. He becomes kind of deflated. Now, war is real. And then he's in a dilemma whether to fight or to flee. And then he brings up various arguments. And some of the arguments are real superb arguments. Personal as well as social. What will happen when war takes place and it's over, the aftermath of the war? We are seeing the aftermath, not even after, during the war, what's happening there in some parts of the world. Terrible. Everything gets disrupted. Lives are just turned upside down. So he was bringing up all these arguments. And Krishna, he simply brushes it out. First, he brushes out his idea of fleeing. You can't flee. You've got to stand here and fight. Then all his other arguments are also dismissed. So the first chapter is nothing but a dilemma, as well as countering the dilemma with something else. And then in the second chapter, instead of elaborating on the solutions, Krishna suddenly goes to the doctrine of the Atman. And the second chapter is replete with what the Atman, the self, really is. So I remember when I was young, I was thinking, you should have gradually taken you can say, the road, and then towards the end, in the kind of like a crescendo, go up there. He started it there in the beginning. The guy wasn't even ready. He was frightened, he's in a dilemma and confused. But that is what the whole idea is. You give it out first in unequivocal language. This is what it is. You must have a spiritual solution to all problems. That was always there. As I said, in the East, we were metaphysicians, and in the West, they were scientists, more or less. So the doctrine of the self was given. And this is how Arjuna, and then later on, the rest of the Bhagavad Gita is nothing but a kind of elaboration on how to experience what was declared in the very beginning. Now, he's saying, again, the Upanishad says, the unintelligent people follow the external desires. They get entangled in the snares of wide-spreading death. Therefore, the discerning persons, having known what true immortality is in the midst of impermanent things, do not pray for anything here. So this is important. The external world, whether inside or outside, is constantly being modified. Always, at every moment. Otherwise, there cannot be something called a world. These laws are operative from the smallest atom, the subatom or whatever, to the highest galaxies. The entire universe is constantly changing. This is called impermanence. As last time we seen, the Buddha was saying, everything is impermanent. What it means is, things are constantly changing. You are constantly changing. The inner world is constantly changing. The external world is constantly being modified. And yet, there is something which we very faintly intuit as there's an unchanging element within us. So, here, when we try to pursue things which are constantly changing, it's like running for water in a mirage. Then we know, oh, there was no water there. It's only an illusion. So in Vedanta, they say, take all these things and start dispensing it off. No, you don't pin your hopes on this. Pin your hopes on something that's permanent. Otherwise, you're going to get swept away. So they said, they use the word neti, not this, not this. And as Sri Ramakrishna says, once you finish the processes, then something else, iti, this. He gives an example. Suppose you want to go to the roof of the house. You use the stairs and you go up, and then you've reached the roof. But then you find the roof is made of the same material as the bricks and the mortar and everything, the stairs in the house, whole house. And then it's a more integral vision of things. Similarly, so the best way to conclude this topic is, there's a very sublime chapter in one of the Upanishads called the Brihad Aranyaka, the Great Forest Upanishad. So Yajnavalkya, the sage, and it's a very long passage. I'll give you a few highlights of it. He who inhabits the earth, but is within it, whom the earth does not know, whose body is the earth, and who controls the earth from within, is the internal ruler, your own immortal self, the Atman. Yesha prithivitishtam prithvi naveda prithvi antarayamayati eshata atma antaryami amrita. So sublime. This is the, so he says, he who inhabits the earth, but is within it, whom the earth does not know, whose body is the earth, and who controls the earth from within. That is the internal ruler, your own immortal self. And then on the earth, and the water, and fire, and sky, and space, and one by one, it's a repeat of the same verse, except the elements have been changed. Then he who inhabits the mind, but is within it, whom the mind does not know, whose body is the mind, and who controls the mind from within, is the internal ruler, your own immortal self, the Atman. Then he goes with the intellect, of the senses, all beings, and then the gods and everything. Keeps on and on and on. And then he concludes, that is never seen, but is the witness. That is never heard, but is the hearer. That is never thought of, but is the thinker. That is never known, but is the knower. There is no other witness but him, no other hearer than him, no other thinker but him, no other knower but him. This is the internal ruler, your own immortal self. Everything else is mortal. So it's called Antaryami Brahmana, the chapter on the internal ruler. So as you go down deep, as I said, Swami Vivekananda wanted the best elements from the east and the best elements from the west. He wanted to have a comprehensive view of reality, not one discarding the other. One party says, oh, that's wrong. The other party said, they are wrong. He brought it all together. And this passage speaks about it. And how does that reality exist? As consciousness. We are aware of ourselves. You're going wrong. You've got to be aware of yourself as the internal ruler. And that is that immortal aspect within you. That consciousness can never die. And yet, it is because of consciousness, this entire internal and external world is held. On what is it held? Yes, it's consciousness that holds everything together. It's at the background of everything. So as they say, the best way out is in. So you know where you're going to end up. This is your own immortal self. That is the internal ruler, your own immortal. Everything else is mortal. Everything is transitory. Everything is perishable. This is looking within. And this is the end of your vision, when you become one with that. Because the word is, this is the internal, your own immortal self, not somebody else's. It's yours. What about this God business? There's no external God. The personal God is just left behind. If there was a time when you needed it, then you transcend it. So your own immortal self, when you look within, holds the very universe. This is the goal of Vedanta. And this is where one day we are all going to reach. Hold on to your seat belts. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om. We'll put our questions. They haven't yet come in. We have any questions here? Yeah. Yes. Okay, there's all pranams. Yeah.
Just on the last thing you said, Swami. So, once we reach that immortal like state and we kind of discard, I guess my question is, why do we discard these like symbols and these gods? Is it because we literally are just one with them and there's no distinction between them? Or
Yeah, it's something like the question is, why do we need to discard all the other deities and all the personal gods and everything? Don't we need them anymore or become one with them? Yes? Yeah. Yeah. It's like, when you were young, you were playing with, these toys. You look back at them, you don't kind of, dismayed with yourself. Or it was part of your growth. So you look back and say, okay, that was also needed. But you have transcended their need now, like you have transcended the need for toys now. Of course, you need bigger toys. But it's that was that stage where you had to hold on to it. After you've transcended, they say, there's a passage in the Upanishads that even the gods can't prevail over you because you become their very self. So that is the idea. And in Vedanta, the totality of all the people, all the beings, everything, from the blade of grass to the creator, Brahma, as they say. They say, A Brahma, Stambha Pariyanta. The collective existence is called Ishvara, in God, in Vedanta. There is no person sitting down there saying, with a long beard. Hey, you may have a chance, you've got a beard now, you'll look with a long robe and long flowing hair and sitting down somewhere and saying, okay, let that, keeping an eye on us. So the totality of all existence is a personal God in Vedanta. Okay. Yeah.
I'm a little curious on the phrase one which does not know the earth, but is one with the earth. What is maybe meant more precisely by does not know? Does that mean like one which does not differentiate and separate earth?
No, it's a very sublime and very esoteric passage. I've just given the real kind. We'll discuss it later. The question is, what does it mean that the earth does not know? This body is the earth, controls the earth from within, isn't it? Something like that. Yeah, that's what he's saying. Whom the earth does not know. There are these various deities like earth and water and fire and air, and that is deities in the sense those realities which identify themselves with these elements, earth, water, fire, air, as well as a mind and senses and the intelligence, everything. In Vedanta, one of the first steps is to understand that there's consciousness. There's some aspects of consciousness identifies itself with certain aspects of reality. Even these deities, they do not know the reality which is behind them, which is their own self, and which is also controlling them from within. Like we are not aware of that internal ruler controlling us. Controlling us through consciousness, of course. So that is what is meant, that the external world as well as the internal world does not realize that it is that consciousness which is there underlying everything. So it is the deity of the deities. That's a better way to put it. Okay. So we can. Oh, there's no questions here also. Yeah. Of course, I think that means I was clear. Thank you very much. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat. Sri Ram Krishna Arpanamastu. Next Sunday, the announcements. The Sunday talk will be next Sunday. It will be memories and memories. So I'll speak about the types of memories, as well as we know, Wednesday we have a gospel reading, a class in gospel, study gospel. And on Fridays, 7 p.m., we have what is called the Household of Disciples of Sri Ramakrishna. You're all welcome to join in.